A judge in Broward County, Florida, denied Governor Rick Scott's request to impound ballots and election equipment when they aren't in use. The governor wanted them impounded for security reasons. The judge felt that wasn't necessary, but did decide to place 3 law enforcement officers at the elections office in Broward County for security. The Sunshine State is currently in the process of recounting more than 8.2 million votes that were cast in the state's races for governor, Senate, and agriculture commissioner. Joining me now from Gainesville is University of Florida Associate Professor of Political Science, Michael McDonald. Michael, thank you so much for being with us. We have seen a lot of accusations about this recount. President Trump and Governor Scott are claiming fraud by Democrats. Senator Nelson is claiming Scott is trying to undermine the votes of Floridians. So what do Florida officials say is really happening?
Well, we just had a ruling by a judge who was adjudicating a lawsuit that was brought by Governor Scott, claiming that there had been some improprieties in Broward County, and the judge ruled that there is no evidence of fraud and is allowing the count to continue as it is. I would also add that the elections division within the Secretary of State's office in Florida has observers on site in the counties. They have law enforcement has been sent. There are observers from both political parties, lawyers, other party officials. The public is available and reporters are available to also look at what's going on within the election offices. Nobody has found any fraud at this point. So this is a completely transparent process, and even a court has at this point ruled that there is no evidence that there's fraud ongoing within the election offices in Florida.
Okay, so no sign of fraud. Now, can you walk us through how this machine recount is supposed to work and what sort of timelines we're looking at here?
Well, there's actually 3 recounts going on right now for statewide offices in Florida. We've got the Senate and governor's elections, which people are very much aware of, but then we also have a very close agricultural commission race as well, which is a statewide office. So all 3 of those races are being recounted at the moment. Election officials have to recount all 3 of them. The way in which some of these election offices do this is they recount sequentially. So they go one race at a time. They can't recount all 3 of the races at the same time. And that does put some pressure on them. They have until Thursday of this week, to complete the counting that they're doing. And it may be that election officials will not be able to do a recount of all 3 of the races. This is the first time we've had 3 statewide recounts simultaneously within Florida, and there may just not be enough time under Florida law to do that. In that case, if that happens, whatever races are recounted, those votes will be recorded as recounted. The ones that don't will be, if even incomplete, the original vote as it stood before the recount will be the vote that is entered in by election officials.
Goodness, they certainly have their work cut out for them, don't they? Now, Senator Nelson currently trails Governor Scott by more than 12,000 votes. Andrew Gillum is behind Ron DeSantis by more than 33,000. So when we really drill into the numbers, how likely is it that we will see significant change to the vote margins from these recounts, as tight as they are?
Most likely we won't. We'll see some small movement in the counts, but these are large numbers relative to the margin of victory that we have at this point that Scott has and DeSantis has over their Democratic challengers. So at this point, I would say its most likely outcome will be that the results will confirm the current leaders. However, you just never know. There could be a machine that didn't register votes for some reason the first time around, and then you do the second pass and you realize that there was some sort of flaw in the programming. That's what Democrats are hoping for, particularly in Broward, because there's a large number of undervotes for particularly the Senate election. And that may be an issue with the ballot formats. It may be some issue with the way in which the machines were programmed. But again, it's unlikely we'll see that many votes be changed or some differential on the count change as a result of this recount.
So now, Michael, what about those ballots, though, from Floridians living overseas or in the military? Have those all been counted at this point? And if not, are they likely to move the dial?
They have not, and they are not part of this recount. We actually have not certified the results yet in Florida. So that doesn't happen until later on Saturday. And so up until Friday, any overseas ballot or military ballot that has a postmark as of Election Day will continue to be accepted by election officials. So those ballots are still coming in. And yes, it's actually possible that those votes could actually move the vote totals. But again, there probably are not enough ballots of those caliber by themselves to flip the election results. I would add about those ballots is that although we're talking about military and overseas civilian voters, those overseas civilian voters actually make up a larger percentage of the votes that are still out there, and that's one of the strongest Democratic groups. So in balance, I actually expect that Nelson and Gillum will make up some ground, but again, we're only talking maybe a few hundred or 1,000 votes. It's not. This in and of itself is not going to change the outcome of the election.
So, Michael, considering that fact that the uncounted votes and these recounts probably won't change the outcome, why do you think that Governor Scott and President Trump are coming down so hard on the state with these allegations of fraud?
Well, it's always the case that the winner likes to declare themselves the winner, and the leading candidate, I should say, likes to declare themselves the winner. It sets the perception of what happens in case there is some sort of change in the vote totals. So I think right now this is just out of a playbook that every leading candidate has, which is to declare themselves the winner, even if the vote is still in question or there's a recount that's still going on. So under Florida law, these votes, there's a process. These votes have to be counted. This judge down in South Florida has at this point said we're not going to interrupt that process. There's no evidence of fraud. They're going to continue on along with that process. If they actually violated the law somehow and stopped the process, that would actually be grounds for the next phase of what could happen here, which is a contest of the election. So there's a recount, which is where you go through and recount the ballots. If you think that there was some sort of election impropriety, then you can challenge the election results as a contest, and that's a whole different legal realm that we would be in. And if the voting was or the ballot counting was somehow short-circuited, that would be good grounds for a lawsuit that would say that the laws weren't followed in Florida, and we need to contest the election results. So I think at this point, Scott really doesn't want to stop this. He wants this to play out.
Well, Michael McDonald, thank you. Florida always keeps us guessing, never a dull moment. Thank you so much for your insight.
All right, you're welcome.